From the newsroom of the Bryant College Station Eagle, this is the Brazos Sports Prepscast. And now, the Eagle High School sports team, Alex Miller and Jake Weiss.
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Brazos Sports Prepscast. I'm Alex Miller with the Eagle, joined always by Jake Weiss. And, well, we picked up a straggler on the side of the road. His name's Robert Cessna. He's the sports editor of the Eagle. How's it going, Cease?
Going great. Wednesday is our Thursday. Thursday's our Wednesday. Who knows?
Well, hey, it's finally here. The games that really count, the district games. You don't want to lose these games because if you do, your season will be over sooner than others.
Yeah, you summed it up best there.
Well, it's a fresh start for everybody.
Right.
I mean, we live in an era where everybody wants hope of going to the playoffs. In the old days, when I first started covering, remember, only one went. And it just seems absurd to think that anybody would play a game where like one advances from a league or district, but it was that way once. I'll never forget when they went to two. Everybody was so excited. Then a runner-up wins state, and then we saw a third-place team win state. The bottom line is everybody wants to compete.
Right. Well, hey, let's break down some of the action. All four of our local public schools will be starting district play this week, and we'll get a little bit into our private schools at the end of the show. You know, let's start with Bryan. Cease, we got you in here. You've watched the Bryan Vikings a couple times this year. You know, kind of a up and down non-district slate for Bryan. They're 1-3, but what'd you see from the couple of games that you covered for them?
Well, a little bit of like coach speak. I saw their first game and their last game, so you could say a good comparison there. They have some playmakers. They have a couple quarterbacks. But they find ways to lose games. You talk about you want to go in to open your district with a little bit of momentum, but Bryan's on a 3-game losing streak, and I'll be interested to see how they use the fresh start because they're going to Temple, a place that notoriously Bryan has not fared well. So when you look at Ricky Tullis in his second year, a lot of people maybe thought things would be better, but they lost a lot of their offensive linemen. They just made the by-district last year and got killed in by-district. So really the jury's out on a lot of things for Bryan. Luckily, they're playing in a district that's very easy to win a few games and you'll make the playoffs because other than, Harker Heights is a defending district champ. They're 2-2. Weiss is 4-0, but they're a little bit untested. There are a lot better 5A districts in the state than 6. And, the bottom line is you talk about what we started out with. You want to win, you want to get better, you want to go to the playoffs. Bryan will have that chance in 12-6A.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that when you look at this district, it looks pretty open. Pflugerville Weiss are the only team with a winning record, and, Bryan opens with Temple this week, and you said it, Cease. The Wildcats have really owned this series throughout history. Bryan hadn't beat them in, 13 years? I think 2010 was the last time they won this game, but this isn't a typical Temple team that we're used to seeing either.
Yeah, because they give up a lot of points. And I'm going to say right off the bat, I've been around long enough to know I will pick Temple, but it would surprise me if Bryan won because speed has hurt Temple when you look at who they lost to and how the scores were, and Temple was leading a couple of those games. If Bryan can get the ball to Turner, to Lewis, they have playmakers on the outside. And what's his name? The linebacker, York, is not at Temple. He's at A&M unless he goes out there and plays before the game.
Yeah.
And I guess anything's possible these days. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if Bryan went in there and won. It'll be interesting to see, can they find a hot quarterback and can they use their speed?
I think nonetheless, even if Bryan comes out with a loss this week, having a competitive game against Temple would probably give them some confidence going into some games that they should be able to win moving down the line and trying to get back to the playoffs for the third year in a row.
Yeah, because I think I haven't looked at them, a coach taking it 1 week at a time. I think they come back and play Cove, and Cove's one of those teams that, quote, they should be at their place. So at worst, you think Bryan's looking at a 1-1 start. You win 3 games in this league, you're going to go to the playoffs. So everything's there. They haven't had a lot of injuries. I think any team, and they really were a better team last week than Randall. But Randall made the big plays. 2 plays gave him 14 points, and now Randall's a 5A team, and they're a 5A team that I think might not even make the playoffs. But once again, you got to look at your own situation.
Well, let's shift our focus over to the College Station schools. Jake, in District 11 5A Division I, College Station, they open with Leander. A&M Consolidated hosts Georgetown. Jake, you'll be at Consol's game against Georgetown this week. Look, the Eagles are 1-2. We know what kind of playmaker they have in Andrew Petter. And like last year, this could be a critical game to the district standings when we get down the line toward November, because remember last year we had a 3-way tie between Consol, College Station, and Georgetown. Had to go to that point differential to see who was seated highest.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know, Alex, you always like to sometimes throw, trivia questions at me. So I've got one for you.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, please.
So who are the 2 teams, I know he's a new coach, who are the 2 teams that new A&M Consolidated head coach Brandon Schmidt has history with in this district?
I know one of them is Cedar Park, and the other one is it Georgetown?
It is
That's
Georgetown.
Georgetown. That's who they're playing. That's who they're playing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, these first 2 weeks, we talked about that this week, me and him, and it was funny. I said, hey, you got any history with any of these teams? And he said, hey, 9 years at Cedar Park. Every year we were at Cedar Park, played Georgetown. So these first 2 weeks of district, we know these teams super well. So I thought that was pretty funny. And obviously, he got to see College Station. They went to state. We all know that. So he knows them as well. But those 2 are the ones he really knows the best. And, yeah, I mean, it's a big game here to start it off. It's kind of funny. You and I were talking about this earlier in the week. That Consol-Georgetown game, it started district last year. And I felt like towards the end it kind of became a little bit of a forgettable game, or when you had to go kind of think back and go, oh, yeah, Consol won that game. But like you said, it mattered, in a big way towards the end because they all 3 shared district title. I think coming in Georgetown, they've got Petter, they've got their quarterback back as well, Noah Boris. They lost their leading receiver from last year. I think he went to Rice. Shout out to former sports editor Robert Primo, who's at Rice as well now. But no, it's going to be a big game. I talked to kind of Coach Schmidt as well, kind of about, hey, what's the biggest key this week? He wants the offense to be kind of cleaned up a little bit. They had some dropped passes, missed some blocks in the game against Lufkin. It's been 2 weeks since they last played. But, he said, hey, if we can, clean some of our things up, we've got a chance against Georgetown. Even on the defensive side, too, he said, if we just, the big emphasis for the defense, we've talked about how good they've been so far, but the big emphasis this week is, hey, they've really got to wrap up because, I think Andrew Petter right now is averaging about 7.5 yards per carry. If he can run like that against, Consol on Friday, they might be in some tough sledding. But if they can stop him, which, hey, we know they did a pretty good job against Lufkin's running back for 3 quarters. They can contain him like that. I think they can hang with Georgetown.
Shout out to my parents. My dad went to Consol, my mom went to Georgetown. So just quick shout out to them. Got the alma maters, class of '88.
So it's going to be a house divided game, huh?
I guess so. Well, hey, College Station, they're starting against Leander. This is, the Cougars beat them by 28 last year. Leander's 1-2. That's the game I'll be at on Friday. For me, I think I'm curious to see, does Aiden Martinez-Brown return this week? They've gotten some good stuff out of Wilson Stapp. Arrington Maiden has had great command of the passing game. Defense has looked pretty sharp now that Tony Hamilton's back. This is a game I expect the Cougars to win pretty soundly. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I think so. College Station took care of business last year, and I got the chance to talk to Stoney a little bit this week. And the biggest thing, I just asked him, what's kind of the biggest key this week? He just said, as long as we play our game, we should have no problem. Not no problems, but as long as we play our game, no mistakes, do what the Cougars do, we should have some success in district. And I think if they do that, which they pretty much did throughout all the non-district except for the opener, I think they'll be in good shape.
I think it's kind of interesting because if College Station went up and destroyed Temple, which I wasn't surprised that they won, but I was surprised they won by that margin. And when I was working on my capsules yesterday, I was thinking it's amazing if Consolidated would have gone to Lufkin and won. Where would they be? Where would we think they would be at 3-0? Because they got the quarterback back. They got a good defense. It's amazing what one game will do. And of course, College Station would be ranked number 4 or 5 in the state probably if they'd have won that opener. So once again, you talk about everybody getting a fresh start. That's why it's so important when you hit district. You got to win that first game and get in a roll.
Hey, speaking of fresh starts, Rudder, they've kind of found their way the last couple weeks, getting a couple of wins. Now they host Lamar Consolidated to open District 10 5A Division 2. That's a mouthful. This is one that kind of slipped away from the Rangers last year. They lost by a touchdown. It was a close game. Lamar Consolidated, they're probably not a district title contending team. And I don't know about y'all, but I feel like winning games like this is going to be the difference if Rudder's on the right side of the playoff seeding or not.
Yeah, I looked back at the standings for last year, and Lamar Consolidated finished 5th. And this was also Rudder. I mean, we all know Rudder went 0-6 in district last year, but this was the closest loss they had. And like you mentioned, it was in overtime by a touchdown. So, I mean, if they can win this one, that's a 3-game win streak. You're feeling really good. It's funny, when I think back to the preseason, Coach Izar and I were kind of just talking, and he said, hey, if we can get like our boys basketball team, win one, how they won one playoff game and just kept it going. Maybe they do that this week. They get the first one, they just keep stacking wins and see where they go.
I think one of the biggest questions is going to be if Cody Billings is able to go. Left the game last week. I think Coach Izar told you he was day-to-day going into this one, Jake.
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday, which was Tuesday. He's day-to-day at the moment. Jaquise Martin did step in and play a little quarterback last year. Kind of similar situation. Xavier Ramirez was the starter last year. Got a concussion, I want to say, against Brenham. Jaquise Martin stepped in, played quarterback. I think actually finished the game, against Brenham. Jaquise did. And then I want to say the next week, actually, Cody Billings made his first start on varsity. So similar situation, I guess. If Cody can't go, Jaquise will be quarterback. We'll see what happens. Rudder really took care of business on the ground against Khalid and Chaparral. I know they were real worried, about slot T, but they looked real good on the ground. You have Jaquise back there. You have Bruce Hendricks, who's kind of been coming on last couple weeks. Maybe they just kind of run the ball and see what they can do with Jaquise back there. But, be interesting to see what they look like Friday night.
When you look at this district, it looks like Lake Creek's kind of head and shoulders above the rest. They're 4-0, number 4 in their division right now overall. But, they get 4-0 Randall this week. Randall's trying to go out there and prove something. So I think we're going to know a little more how legit Randall might be after this Friday. Cease, you watched Randall last week. You think they got any shot to upset Lake Creek?
None whatsoever, but I will say this. Randall's worth the price of admission because their running back, Williams Callis or Callis Williams, I forget which, but you'll know the name, right? He's a freshman. Alabama's already offered him. This guy's has to be one of the best freshmen I've ever seen. The way he can move in traffic. I've never seen a guy that could avoid tackles in traffic, and then in a split second, he is gone. And that being said, is him and the wide receivers were the only ones in that game. The defense made some nice plays, but they blitz all the time. They try to get things, but I would think Lake Creek wins that game by like about 40. But getting back to Rudder, if they can win this game tomorrow night, it gives them 3 wins, which I think is one more than they had last year.
Correct.
Then suddenly they're thinking, well, if you can beat, I don't think I'd pick them. They'll probably lose to Brenham and Huntsville, but if you get that momentum going, those are games they could win. Suddenly they could get to 500 or something. And say what you will, we've all been around Izar enough. He's a very confident guy, and I think his team feeds off that. I laugh because I talked to him when I was doing one of the previews scrimmages. He goes, we were 2-8, but we really weren't a 2-8 team. It's like, who says that? But he believed that. Yeah. So, there's something to be said about believing in things.
Yeah, if there's anybody that believes in the Rudder Rangers, it is Eric Izar, and there is no doubt about that. Brenham, they actually have one more non-district game against New Braunfels. Jake, do you know what the New Braunfels mascot is?
It's a unicorn, right?
Oh,
Oh, Jake, gold star.
I think it's just history. It's the first time I've gotten one of these questions right on the podcast.
Is there any school in Auburn? What's the worst mascot you've heard of a school in Auburn? Because Jake was in prison a while in Auburn, so he can tell the fans.
Ooh,
See, I put you on the spot too.
man, I kind of actually liked all the mascots. Like, there was not one that I didn't like.
Okay.
We've still got to rank the mascots of the Brazos Valley later this season. That's something.
a good idea.
Cease, I'd be interested to get your take on that. You've been around.
Yeah, we'll do that sometime. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I still need to find out what a yawa is. Don't spoil it for me. But
I once did a whole bit on that.
did you really?
Yeah, really. And it was a time when we didn't have the internet and all that. Because I was when we do that, it was pretty funny. I got the librarian at Somerville involved. I got a lot of people involved, and the only reason it made it go was my stupidity. Because obviously everybody in Somerville knows what a yawa is, but of course I wasn't the only stupid one in the valley, so I had a good stick out of it.
Well, stay tuned. We're gonna have the yawa expert Robert Cessna back on the show later this fall to explain what the heck that is. But hey, Brenham, I don't think the Cubs should necessarily be slept on. Not sure if they're going to be able to
Sleep on the Cubs? Sleep
yeah,
on the bear? I get it.
Yeah, they're gonna
Hibernation.
I don't know if they're gonna knock down Lake Creek, but Brenham made the third round of the playoffs last year, and they got a couple of nice wins early on this season.
Yeah, both wins so far in non-district 6A schools. So are they giant killers? I mean, jury's out, I guess, but so far, I mean, results have been pretty good.
Wow. See what the Cubs have to show for against the Unicorns on Friday night. Hey, St. Joe's, they're the only private school in town that have started district play. They opened with a win over Baytown Christian. The Eagles have Brazosport Christian this week. Kind of starting to look like they might be the favorite in that district when you start looking at things. And Allen Academy, they closed non-district play against Apple Springs this week. The Rams responded to that loss against St. Joe's with a pretty dominant 45-0 win over Savoy. Ethan Lucas had a good night. I think I heard Brock Field made some plays. Not surprised. Those are names we hear all the time. And then, hey, Brazos Christian had a rough game against Central Texas Christian. The Eagles, they still have 3 more non-district games. Jake and I had to double-check that when we were looking at our show notes and just, down at the private school level, it's kind of interesting how they shuffle those things around.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think there's almost a month between district games for them.
Yeah.
First one's like November, or last one is the last game of the season. It's like November 3rd is their second district game, and then I think October 13th is the first one. So almost a month. Kind of weird, but they'll be ready though.
Anything goes in private schools because those TAPs and TAIAO, I've seen before where they've changed districts in the middle of the year, like when somebody quits or whatever, they don't have enough players. Anything goes in private schools.
Lawlessness. Well, hey, Brazos Christian, they get Bay Area Christian this week. See if Coach Washington, Jackson Caffey, and the boys can get it rolling over there on the west side of Bryan. So, Cease, got any other thoughts on just where things are at right now?
I do have a thought because Alex is good about asking questions and sometimes he doesn't give answers. But I did look up, not a good thing, but Caldwell's losing streak is number 9 in the state right now. There are 8 other schools. Unfortunately, I always said one of the worst things in my time of covering high school football, I hate to see any team go 0-10, but it does happen. And so right now, Caldwell has the 9th longest losing streak in Texas. I looked that up. And, of course, Franklin, on the flip side, number 3 winning streak in the nation. So that's not bad.
Yeah, I think Caldwell's got Lexington this week. That'll be a tough game for the Hornets. And I think the Lions have Rogers. Is it Rogers or McGregor?
McGregor.
I think it's
McGregor.
Excuse me, McGregor. So
Wasn't that? No, it was McIver. I was going to say, isn't it?
Hey, speaking of that district, Lorena and Cameron, that's going to be a big game.
That'll be a good game.
That'll be a
good game.
big game.
I think so.
And while we're at it, Anderson Shiro, see if they can keep that defensive strong suit up against Kuntz this week. And as the Owls start district play over there in 3A Division 2.
3 shutouts in non-district. So I actually think it might be 3 in a row. So yeah, let's see if they can make it 4, I guess.
Well, hey, they're gonna have a big test next week. That's for sure. We're gonna find out how legit the Owls are when they go and play Newton. Ooh. That's gonna be a big game for Coach Hodges and his team. So, all right, Jake, you got any final thoughts while we're at it?
No, we covered everything.
Cool. Well, hey, be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage on high school football here in the Brazos Valley. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Brazos Sports Prepscast. We'll see you next week.